The main issue is really not the calculation method. The main issue is that we are not able to detect signals and take timely action. That's the main issue. Our calculation method is not facilitating quick action, quick discovery of signals because they are hidden in our data. Well, hello everyone and welcome. I'm so glad to connect with you again and welcome to this live discussion today. We're going to try something different today. We are using the Zoom platform. It is supposed to be more stable and it'll help us to engage a little bit better, unlike the LinkedIn platform. So let's see how it goes. And I really want to welcome you because we have a global audience today. Those of you who registered, thank you for taking the time for registration and letting me know where you are going to be joining from. So we have people from Europe, we have people from India, we have people from Egypt, and of course the United States. So I welcome this global audience and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out from your busy schedule to join this session today. Now you should be able to engage with me through the Q&A section. If you have a question during our conversation, you can put the question up there or through the chat. So make sure that you are participating. And I just want to remind everybody that this is still a public forum. So let's make sure we do not share any proprietary or business sensitive information. And we remain sensitive to the fact that this is public forum and we are respectful to each other and express our opinions in a respectful way, especially when we disagree. And finally, of course, this is not going to be any regulatory advice in this session. We're just going to share information. With that, I actually want to, Bijan, you are saying hi. So thank you for joining. Appreciate you joining again. I want to actually do a quick poll with you guys, if I can, just to see what your current role is. And you should be able to get this poll in your Zoom window and make sure you take some time to answer this question. So we can see, what kind of role do you play in your quality management system or the risk management process in your organization. Well, with that said, colleagues, today we're going to talk about some lessons we can learn from a recent warning letter. And I do this pretty routinely. I monitor the warning letters on FDA's website because they provide to me a very rich source of information of learning about how FDA views our activities and where they find deficiencies with respect to regulatory requirements. So whatever they write, of course, is in the context of the regulatory requirements, but it still gives us an idea about some deficiencies that we can probably take a look at and address in our own process. So today I want to focus on a warning letter which actually gives us a very interesting insight about how FDA views the calculation methods being practiced in the industry. And in this particular case, they are actually having a problem with that, the calculation method used, because they are saying that it's underestimating the risk, and as a result, the manufacturer is not able to take right action in a timely way. It's a very serious situation. So we're going to take a look into that. But again, this is only for the purpose of discussion and conversation. And I'll share with you some ideas that you can consider in your process. However, it should not be taken as regulatory advice that yes, it will satisfy FDA's questioning. So let's take a look into that. I will share with you a few slides to set up the case, but make sure you are asking your questions or you are sharing your opinion in the chat box along the way. You don't have to wait until the slide presentation to finish, and I'll try to address as many questions as I can. So this warning letter relates to an automated insulin dosing system. And here the intended use is that it is intended for continuous delivery of basal insulin at user selectable rates and administration of insulin boluses, which are, a shot of insulin at a time, for example, in user selectable amounts for the management of type 1 diabetes mellitus in persons 14 years of age or older requiring insulin, as well as for the continuous monitoring and trending of glucose levels in the fluid under the skin. You can find more information about this product in this PMA, and the product code is OZP. So here is the issue of concern. Really, there is a retainer ring at the top of this pump which holds basically the reservoir in place. And if there's a damage, to this retainer ring, or if the ring is missing, the reservoir cannot stay in place. So the insulin delivery is affected. And this can happen if the user bumps the device or the device falls down. It can break down. Now, this is an older version of the device. Since then, the problem has been fixed. But FDA is taking note of that. And they are saying in the warning letter, FDA has determined that there was a reasonable probability that the use of or exposure to the pumps manufactured with the clear retainer ring would cause serious adverse health consequences, including severe hypoglycemia, which can result in loss of consciousness, seizure, severe hyperglycemia, which can result in diabetic ketoacidosis, or hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state, metabolic abnormalities, or death. Here's a reference to the warning letter. You can look up on FDA's website, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So this could be a serious situation, and as you can imagine, many units are there in the field. Diabetes, type 1 diabetes is actually a pretty common disease, and there are these fully integrated insulin delivery systems now available for good. So there are many units out there, and as a result, the exposure to this type of a potential device failure or a hazardous situation caused by the device could result into a lot of injuries. I think that is where the FDA is coming from. So let's take a look at that. And again, as a reminder, please continue to share your comments, or if you have any questions about this, in the Q&A box. So here's the observation of interest. This is a very long warning letter. I won't go into everything in this, but they're citing this under a CAPA process. So this is another insight, how FDA cites is against a regulatory requirement. They don't necessarily say that your risk management process is not working, but the underlying cause is really in the risk management process. So they're citing against the CAPA process. Here's the situation we talked about. Increased complaints of damaged retainer ring highlights the risk of life-threatening adverse events. The firm initiates a recall and a CAPA. FDA investigation finds issues with CAPA investigation, corrective preventive action, and effectiveness check. So that's the issue. What's the main point? The FDA did not agree with risk estimation based on total shipment of affected product in the revised procedure. And I'll give you some example of what that means and where that could lead to a problem. So what they're citing in the letter is the updated formula uses the total shipment of affected product, which again underestimates the probability of occurrence, because the number of products shipped includes devices not in use by patients. For example, devices shipped to distributors that have not yet been distributed to customers. So how do you find that information? How much of the device or how many devices are actually in the field being used by customers? How do you get that information unless you track each individual device? So this is a serious problem. They are saying when you use the total shipped quantity, it is not accurately representing what is actually being used. That's the problem they are citing. So question is, which probability of occurrence we are talking about? They are saying in the letter, while you implemented your procedure, we disagree with your characterization of the risk threshold, which led to a conclusion of lower risk than appropriate. So that's why they are questioning the method of calculation, because it led to a conclusion that the risk level is low, and as a result, no action is needed when FDA would have expected action to be taken. They also say that you did not accurately calculate the risk associated with the failed retainer rings, because your risk calculation formula underestimated the probability of occurrence of harm. So which probability we are talking about? It's very useful to get aligned on that. Are we talking about the probability of failure? Typically, we will show a probability of a failure mode due to a certain cause in our FMEA. That would be maybe PFM. Are we talking about probability of harm, which is POH? And as we know, it has two components: probability of occurrence of a hazardous situation, P1, or probability of the hazardous situation leading to harm, P2. And POH is the multiplication of these two probabilities. So it is important to understand which probability we are talking about. FDA definitely is looking at the probability of harm, but they are also saying the probability of harm related to these retainer rings, right? So we have to dig deeper into this. So this could be one scenario, and of course, in the warning letter, you don't get all the details, so we are kind of guessing. In this scenario, maybe we are using the shipment data to estimate the probability of harm directly, and I'll show you how that is done. And that might be resulting in a very low estimate of the POH because our shipped quantity is so large, our denominator is so large. In another scenario, maybe we are using the shipment data to estimate P1, which is the probability of occurrence of a hazardous situation. And then we are multiplying it by P2, which is also a number less than 1, which further lowers the estimated POH. So we are basically maybe coming up with a very low number. So why does it matter? Let's look at scenario 1. It is a common practice to estimate probability of harm by a simple calculation. POH is number of harm events divided by total opportunities. It is quite a common practice. Total shipment of affected product may be used in the denominator if it accurately reflects the total opportunities in the time period under review. And there are a lot of situations where it may not be accurately reflecting the amount of product that is out there or what the denominator should be. And it matters. So some of the factors, for example, that may result in an inaccurate estimate of POH is low signal if the denominator is several orders of magnitudes larger than the numerator. I will show you. And in this particular case, that could be the issue because we know hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these units are actually being used. And again, I want to emphasize, for good, they are offering a lot of benefit to our patients who have no other option except to check their insulin level every hour, manage what they eat. No other option. This is a very good option. It has a lot of benefit. It is benefiting a lot of patients. But we are looking into a process that is probably not allowing us to identify new risks in a very quick manner, in an easy way. I invite you to continue sharing your Q&As, questions and answers. If you have any opinion on this, also please share that. It doesn't have to be a question. I know you guys have a lot of experience in this area. So please share as much as you can in the Q&A box or the chat box. So some of the factors that may result in an inaccurate estimate of POH if you use this method is we might get a very low signal. There might be a time lag between complaints received and units shipped. Seasonality of demand and production. And dilution of multiple complaints from the same patient or complaints related to a specific production lot. It may get diluted in the big number. So how do we take action? The signal to noise may be very bad. Poor to signal to noise problem with a large denominator. Let's look at that as an example. And I'm going to give you a very quick overview of this. I've done the numbers. Let's say we have a scenario where in period 1 we get 100 complaints of, let's say in this case, hyperglycemia. Serious situation. In period 2 we get 200 complaints. That's a 100% increase. Okay? The 100% increase. Let's take a simple 3-case scenario. In one case, we are shipping 1,000 units. Second case, 10,000 units. Third case, 100,000 units. If we apply our simple formula, in period 1, we will get probability number like this. For a large number of units, it's a very small number, 0.001. Now, let's assume that in period 2, our shipments went up by 10% uniformly. Maybe we expect a 10% increase in the rate of events. If we are shipping more units, maybe more events will be reported to us. We have a 100% increase. So we can recalculate our probability numbers and you can see it leads us to a very small number again in a large shipment case. However, the change in the probability level is about the same, about 82%. But our ability to perceive that change when the numbers are very small is very poor. I think that's the point I want to make to you. So the change in POH at high shipment quantity may be erroneously considered as insignificant if, and I say it's a big if because we have very smart statisticians with us. If we don't apply advanced statistical methods, we may miss it because for us, going from 0.001 to 0.0018, what's a big deal? It's not a big change. And this may have a serious consequence when the severity of the issue is high, which is what is the case here. Okay, we have a comment here from Bijan. The number of opportunities would almost always be less than the number of shipped units. So if we use the number of shipped units, we are going to underestimate the risk level. The question is, how much? By how much will it be lower? How can we estimate that? Should we do scenarios? Should we do what if analysis? Should we say what if our estimate is incorrect by 50% and what will be the probability of harm then? All those are very good points. Thank you. Mitch, you have a question here. Did you mean that it is harder to detect the difference between 0.001 and 0.0018 compared to detecting the difference between What I meant to say, Mitch, is it's harder to perceive a change in the difference if the number is very small. It's a perception. Now, if we are using advanced statistical methods, we can say it is still a significant change, we should take some action, right? But if we just purely do a calculation for the sake of it, report these numbers and review them month over month, our perception will be basically determined by the number that we are looking at, which is a very small number. That's what I meant. Okay, so let's continue. Good questions and good comments. Thank you for sharing this. Scenario 2, why does it matter? So often, and again, this is my experience, I would love to hear from you. How are you doing it in your practice? Often P1, which is probability of a hazardous situation, is estimated from complaints or device malfunctions using a similar formula. Number of malfunctions divided by number of units shipped. So as we discussed before, this method will also lead to a very low estimate of P1 if the number of units shipped is very large. Further, rate of occurrence of device malfunctions do not accurately represent the rate of occurrence of hazardous situations. This is a common point of confusion in the industry, in my experience. Would love to hear from you. Common point of confusion. We think that the device malfunction, we can calculate a rate of occurrence of those malfunctions and we can equate that to rate of occurrence of hazardous situations. It is not correct. It is not true. But let's say we continue with this process. So let's take another same case. Let's say we are shipping 100,000 units. Our estimated P1 will be the same 0.001 in period 1, period 2 0.0018. Now let's play this game. Let's say we have estimated the P2 for hyperglycemia in this scenario to be 0.5 based on medical expertise, literature, whatever. So we multiply our P1 by P2, we come up with even a smaller number, 0.0005 in period 1, 0.0009 in period 2. Now let's say, okay, we think it's 1. Let's take the FDA's view. If that situation occurs, 100% certainty that harm will occur. Okay, fine. Let's take P2 as 1. We still get a pretty low number. So the point is that when we are dealing with low numbers, because we are using a very large denominator, we can be fooled by the rate of change. The signal may be hidden in our data. We have very poor signal to noise. So what is the main issue here? I think, and would love to hear from you, the main issue is really not the calculation method. The main issue is that we are not able to detect signals and take timely action. That's the main issue. Our calculation method is not facilitating quick action, quick discovery of signals because they are hidden in our data. When we have extremely low numbers, we do not have good signal to noise ratio to detect potential signals. I'm going to pause here because I know I went through a lot very, very quickly with you. Does this make sense? Does it sort of match with your real world experience? We are not talking about precision here. So I don't want to lead you to believe that I'm saying one method is better than the other method. Whatever method we use, the question is, does it allow us to detect signals quickly and then take action in a timely way? Is it effective? That is the essence of our risk management process in post-market phase. Whatever method we use, is it effective in helping us to detect signals? So, does this make sense to you that when we use a very large number in the denominator, do a quick calculation like I showed to you, we're going to get small numbers and perceiving changes in those small numbers. Imagine you're looking at a chart month after month, so-called trend analysis, which I'm not a big fan of trend analysis. Let me be honest with you, because in my mind, a trend is not a signal. Trend may be too late before you recognize it. But let's say you're monitoring trends and everything appears to up and down here and there. We eyeball it. Hey, it's going down or is it going up? We make these determinations based on perception of what the data seems to us. We may be doing some statistical analysis as well, and in some cases that may actually trigger signals which are really not true. Maybe we are oversensitive in our statistical analysis. So it's not a perfect world. The key question is our process allowing us to detect signals timely and correctly? Is it effective? That's what the main topic of discussion is. So I hope that makes sense to you, but please let me know what you think in your Q&A box and or even the chat box. Okay, so let's continue, because I want to share with you one method that has worked for me in the past. And again, I'm not saying go ahead and start using this method. I just want to share with you one method that has worked for me in my past experience in helping to detect signals, especially when it comes to high severity events. Let me also say that in medical device industry, I think we do a pretty good job of coming out with good products, reliable products, but we do have high severity events, and they tend to happen at a low occurrence rate. So in order to really see what the signal is, we should not rely on the rate calculation. We are doing a good job, but we have to do a little bit better in trying to figure out what is a true signal for high severity events, which thankfully in many cases happen to be at a low rate. Thankfully, thank God. Okay, so this method is PRR, Proportional Reporting Ratio. There is a reference here which you can look up. There's a FDA white paper on this and extensively used on the pharma side. I'm not sure if it is used as much on the device side, but please let me know in your comments if you are using PRR and what is your experience with it. So here is how it works. It's basically a simple table. You look at your specific product you are analyzing. You look at the specific type of events and you compare the number of events for that product compared to other products in relation to all other events. So it's a very simple process. I'll give you an example. PRR is basically the observed rate divided by the expected rate. And here the expected rate is against the background of all other devices, all other events. So actually you're really analyzing it based on a pretty big baseline, which is very, very effective. So you can do some fancy statistics, calculate the standard deviation, calculate 95% confidence interval. And then if the lower bound on the PRR is greater than 1, meaning the observed rate of events is higher than the expected rate of events, with 95% confidence, we should say there is a signal. That's a way to trigger a signal. And it doesn't matter what the rate is. It's the events, number of events we are talking, and we are using the background number of events to calculate a rate, not the shipped quantity. So I hope that is clear. If it is not clear, please let me know in the chat or Q&A. So let's look at an example, our same example. So we're looking at base case, period 1. We're going to ship certain number of units for model, actually same number of units. We are looking at model number 1, and you might have other models 2, 3, 4. Maybe you have a same system in different model, different functionalities. And this is the hypothetical scenario. We're going to look at severity level 3 or more than severity level 3 events, which are serious events. We will consider that as serious events, and all other events which are severity level less than or equal to 3. And let's say we come up with this distribution, and notice that I have balanced it in a way that I get a PRR of 1, because I want to consider a base case of 1 to show you the difference. I can calculate the standard deviation and I calculate the confidence interval. The lower confidence interval is 0.8. We have no reason to believe that model number 1 is leading to a disproportionately high rate of occurrence for high severity events. That's our base case. Okay. Now let's look at period 2. Shipments of all models are up 10%. That was my earlier calculation. High severity events for model up are up by 100%. All other events for all models by only 10% in proportion to the increase in shipment. So I calculate the numbers, we find this. Now our PRR is 1.7, standard deviation is 0.08, 95% CI, lower 95% interval is 1.43. So we have reason to believe that there's something special going on with model 1 when it comes to high severity events in this scenario. Something is happening. Now we have to investigate further, but that's a trigger. That's a signal for you to go look for it. Very easy to see. very simple, straightforward calculation. We are not looking at with a magnifying glass trying to find if there's a difference between 0.0001 and 0.00018. That's the advantage. So it is pretty routinely used on the pharma side. We're not using it as much on the device side. I have used it in my prior experience with great success. It has allowed us to really keep an eye on adverse events and compare them to other types of events with other devices. So we can quickly pick out the signal from the noise. Let me know if it makes sense to you guys. So briefly, let's review the ISO 14971 requirement, because in our discussions we focus on risk management. Clause 10 says that manufacturer shall review the information collected for possible relevance to safety, especially whether previously recognized hazards or hazardous situations are present. So we could say that in this particular scenario, yes, retainer rings were failing, and as a result we were hearing complaints of exposure to this hazardous situation. So we should have recognized that. An estimated risk arising from hazardous situation is no longer acceptable. How would we know? We would only know if our calculation method is sensitive enough to be able to show good signal to noise, and we can trigger a signal. Overall residual risk is no longer acceptable in relation to the benefits of the intended use, and the generally acknowledged state of the art has changed. So this is what the standard requires us to do. We are probably doing all of this. The question is how well? How well are we doing it? How effective are we? Or do we have to wait until the FDA comes knocking at our door and gives us a warning letter to understand that our process is not effective? It's kind of too late by that time, isn't it? So we have to find a way, a better way of effectively reviewing these complaints and these events in the post-market phase, trigger a signal before it becomes a trend, take action correctly. And by the way, FDA's view on the effectiveness of this kappa was also because of the way they were calculating it. They could not show that the kappa was effective because they were still getting complaints. Kappa effectiveness checks have to be done against a very well defined measure, carefully defined measure. So you can get into a lot of problems from a regulatory compliance point of view, and that is certainly not my objective here. My objective here is for us to start asking these questions. Is our process effective? If I can help you with that message after all this analysis, I think I would have succeeded in our conversation today. But please let me know what your questions and comments are. So I'm actually gonna share with you some best practices for you to consider. And again, these are my experiences. Would love to hear from you what is your opinion and what has worked for you in the past. Number one is utilize data analysis methods that are more effective in detecting signals, especially in situations related to high severity events. Especially if you're in a mature, stable business and you have a lot of units going out, find a way to trigger a signal for serious adverse events sooner than later. And there are methods. Good news, I showed you one. I'm sure if you talk to your statistics experts, they will be able to help you with that. So it's not that we have a shortage of methods. It's just that we seem to be doing the same thing over and over again until something happens or it breaks down. Second thing, I think it's a soft point, but very important. Develop good listening skills in your post-market surveillance process. Listening skills. Behind every complaint is someone who experienced an injury. It's not a number. It is not a rate. One may be high enough. It's not an inconvenience. And it does not matter if there is no smoking gun pointing to your device. It does not matter. Your best source of signal detection is your people who listen to patients and doctors every day. Empower them and pay attention when they tell you something is not right. We can do statistics every day, all day long, month after month. We can look at charts and trends. Nothing works better than walking down the hallway and talking to your colleagues who are listening to this every day. And they will be able to tell you, this doesn't feel right. I hear, 10, 20, 30 a day, but now I'm hearing 100 or something like that. They will tell you. We detect signals very, very quickly, but we can fool ourselves if we are looking at just data. That's very important to me. Nurture patient advocates across your organization. Create a process that brings the voice of patient early in the design and development. And I'm not saying you're not doing that. I'm sure you are doing that to some extent. Ask the question, are you doing it effectively? Are you doing it consistently? Monitor effectiveness of your processes and take timely action. Compliance is important. I don't want to underestimate that. But effectiveness is far more important. That's it, guys. A lot packed in there. I know we are almost out of time, but I really wanted to share this with you, communicate with you as clearly as I could with some analysis. So first of all, let me know how you like this, how you like this type of a presentation. I'm actually going to ask you to give me another poll. I'm going to actually ask your opinion on something, another topic, because I want to make this worth your while, right? I continue to experiment with things, but I want to make it worth your while. Please indicate your preference for these live discussions. Do you prefer a small group setting with more interactive discussion? Larger group setting like this one but able to ask questions? Or either setting is fine? There are over 20 people on our discussion today, so I would hope to hear from all of you. Please don't be shy. I don't know who is telling me what, but tell me what your preference is, because I will go that way. I want to make this worth your while. You are taking important time, valuable time out of your schedule, and that is my responsibility to give you the value, more value than you anticipate out of these sessions. So I guess we have 17 people have answered so far. Thank you for continuing to answer this question, and I will surely adjust as much as possible to give you the value you deserve by giving me your time. Now, finally, I actually want to share with you some free resources that you can take advantage of. If you are not aware of it, go to my website. It's here. There's a knowledge sharing forum you can join for free. There are over 200 people on that knowledge sharing forum, and we can have more discussions like this in a more closed, intimate setting. And it's on all the time. So you can share comments, ask questions anytime. There's a hazard analysis template you can download. And if you want, you can schedule a 30-minute one-to-one conversation with me, no strings attached. Just to connect, maybe you find opportunities to collaborate. Maybe you have experienced something that you want to share with me only in private. And that's all fine. I want to build a community of practitioners to share information and help each other out. So that's what I'm trying to do here. With that, let's see what our poll is telling us. 20 people have answered, and I'm seeing that either setting is fine is the majority opinion. And if I add the large group setting, and either setting is 19. So we will continue what we are doing now. If things change, let me know. You can reach out to me directly via LinkedIn. And let me know what's on your mind. Any topic you want to hear about in more detail, I will be happy to cover that with you, because I want to make sure you are receiving as much value as possible from your time that you spend with me. I want to thank you again for joining, and I look forward to meeting you again next week. Have a good week, everyone.